In America, everyone counts, and the 2020 census is how that great promise is kept. Respond today online, by phone, or by mail, and help inform hundreds of billions in funding for education, health programs, and more. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov. 52 black former McDonald's franchisees are suing the fast food giant, seeking more than $1 billion. They say they were forced to close or sell more than 200 McDonald's locations because of systematic and covert racial discrimination. It is an explosive lawsuit. They say that McDonald's forced them to make changes to improve their stores, things not required of white franchisees. Joining us right now is a former franchisee, Van Jakes. Van, welcome to Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hey, Roland, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great. So explain to us exactly what this lawsuit is about. Now, I've actually spoken to the McDonald's black franchisees a couple of times last year, previously as well. I've met many of you, and folks always talked about for years how McDonald's was a huge proponent of black businesses, and black franchisees really touted the company. Yet this lawsuit says they were systematically denied opportunities.
Absolutely. Roland, when we first got started, we always knew we were behind. We had to run faster to catch up. The only problem we didn't understand, we wasn't running the same race. Instead of running 400 meters, it's 800 meters. And the white operators get to run 400, we get to run 800. What I mean by that is I didn't know until I left the system some of the things that was going on because I was concerned running my race, trying to be best I could be. And there was a lot of us feeling the same way when we got together and realized what was going on.
So when did you first become a McDonald's franchisee?
I played in the NFL for a little bit, had a cup of coffee and a donut for about 6-7 years. And then I became a McDonald's operator in 1992 down in Florida, came to Atlanta in 1994, and I was in here for about 23 years as an operator.
And so when did you stop being a franchisee or an operator, and why? What caused that?
2016, so much required reinvestment, the strain on my body, mentally, physically, from playing football, trying to do second generation. And McDonald's really almost forcing you out because if you don't do it your way, it's either their way or the highway. And then when you realize they didn't do the same thing to our white counterparts, what I mean by that is one store in particular, I reinvested that store 3 times, rebuilt it 3 times. And I seen some stores when I got out of the system, they never reinvested in it once. So that means you can never get out of debt. So it's like a rat race. You can never get caught up, especially now extending the race from 400 to 800 meters, where the white operator, once again, is running 400 meters.
Now explain to folks there, because, again, you hear me saying owner, the official term is operator. And so when you say you had to make these changes, if McDonald's corporate told you must make these changes, you have no option. You have to do it, correct?
Option. Exactly. So, for example, they got something called the National Restaurant Standards. That's what everybody should go by. So whether you buy a store, sell a store, things you have to do. So when I bought stores, I had to do things to bring them up to par. Same thing with the white operators, supposedly, but they had a different system where they were allowed to not do those things, which means you didn't have to take debt and put it on top of debt. So those are the things that really bothered us as black operators, that we were held to a different standard. And we were punished by that, by not getting stores and not be allowed to grow. Then they say, well, you don't have enough money to grow. Well, how can I have enough money to grow? I keep reinvesting in my stores to the point where I can't afford a new store for the opportunity in a better part of the neighborhood. Where the white operators, if you don't make them invest, they pay off the debt, then they have the money to buy another store in a better neighborhood. So they continue to stretch the distance from 400 to 800 meters.
So let's talk about that. And so the suit, it covers franchisees all across the country, correct?
Correct. We really didn't want to do this. We tried to go to mediation because, McDonald's has allowed us to do a lot of good things in our families, in our communities, and we want to do the same thing and not to bring this to some of our friends that still owners right now, African-American owners. So we didn't really want to do that, but they gave us no other choice. So we're trying to take care of our kids, kids, just like they're trying to do, the white operators. I even had a white operator call me today, a former operator, and tell me, man, you guys are doing this is a great lawsuit. I will be a witness because I wouldn't reinvest like that. I just told him I wouldn't do it. He had no ramifications. I said, Keith, I couldn't do that. And he said, I know. So, I told the attorney, he said, yeah, we'll use him as a witness if we need to.
So, in reading this, I mean, it really lays out a significant amount of issues. And I've heard from other franchisees who said they want to be able to grow. And then they didn't have those opportunities. Also, they complained when McDonald's allowed white franchisees to open stores near theirs, taking market share, taking those dollars away as well. Those are also things that we heard.
Oh, absolutely. Impact. That was my last straw for me. I had a store about a mile and a half from my best store, and they didn't know if they was going to give it to me or not. Yet, other white operators, there's no question they're going to get it, no matter what your financial situation look like, because that can always improve if you guys want to really to work with, if the bar is really equal. But that never was the case, and we realized that the more we got out, the more we started talking to each other, because we're kind of isolated. Even my managers knew it. I was like, hey, we got to control what we can control. It's not controllables. I don't know what's going on down the street. But now I got out of the system, I seen what was going on down the street, and it really was disgusting, to be honest with you.
According to the law firm, is James Ferraro is the lawyer, and according to this. This is what he says. The notion that McDonald's is a friend of the black entrepreneur is complete fiction. McDonald's has been hemorrhaging black franchisees for decades due to blatant and implicit racial discrimination. The company will now be held accountable. According to him, McDonald's had a high of 377 black franchisees in 1998. That's been cut by more than half, saying there are now only 186 black franchisees. But while that's the case, according to what he says, meanwhile, over the same period from 1998 to 2019, McDonald's has increased its stores from 15,086 to 36,000. So they more than double the number of stores, yet the black franchisees has dropped.
Correct. That was a way to say the train has left the station. And a lot of us seen it coming, but we worked hard, kept running the race, trying to fight to get caught up, to get our, get our fair, to get parity, but it never could happen the way they had the system set up.
McDonald's, obviously, they responded. They deny these claims. They say that they remain consistent. You said I tried to go to mediation, but it was unsuccessful.
Very unsuccessful. Just a slap in the face. We treat us like we're second-class citizens versus, being proud African Americans that helped grow the brand the way we did. And we're not asking for handouts. We're just asking for them to do the right thing, and so we can continue to do, good works in our communities where we live throughout the country, and then taking care of our families.
So according to McDonald's, they said they have actually been consolidating franchisees. They've said that black franchisees has gone up, making up 13.4% of all McDonald's franchisees to 12.5% of all the U.S. franchises. Chris Kimzinski, the McDonald's CEO, said, quote, "My priority is always to seek the truth. When allegations such as these occur, I want them investigated thoroughly and objectively. That's been our approach to the situation. Based upon our review, we disagree with the claims in this lawsuit, and we intend to strongly defend against it." Your final thoughts?
Well, that'll be good if we can get the facts, and it would make it better. They've already made some improvements with the current operators. In the history of McDonald's, they never cut some of their rents permanently until we thought about this lawsuit. So we'd have made changes already, and I hope they continue to make changes, and I hope they get to the facts, and they'll realize there was some blatant discrimination going on in the system.
All right. Van, we certainly appreciate you for joining us. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, my brother. Appreciate you.
All right. Let's go to my panel right now, folks. Melik Abdul, Republican strategist, Kelly Bethea, communications strategist, and Mustafa Santiago Ali, PhD, former senior advisor for environmental justice, EPA. Mustafa, I'll start with you. This moment that we're in, this reckoning that we are in, we are seeing African Americans demand equity, demand inclusion, and make it perfectly clear that it's time to deal with economic justice. That's what this lawsuit actually deals with. And on the franchisee side, black franchisees have said, hey, they've been the driving force behind McDonald's. When things were tough, it was African American consumers who really never neglected and left the company. These franchisees are saying, hey, we've been out there touting McDonald's, stick with us. Now you're stabbing us in the back. That's really what this lawsuit lays out.
It just goes to show us that systemic racism exists even in places like fast food. It exists in the financing. It exists in the banking loans that are necessary for folks to be able to get traction. It exists in the priority setting, and also it exists in how folks are setting up criteria inside of their systems to choose really losers and winners. So when we don't unpack this, when we don't put a spotlight on this, and it's unfortunate that there has to be a lawsuit, but if folks are not willing to do the right things, then sometimes you have to go the legal route to get, folks to pay attention and to know that you're serious. They have literally made billions and billions of dollars off of the Black community. They have no problem in throwing Black faces up on the commercials, but they need to also be making sure that they're honoring those Black owners, partners, who are doing the hard work and trying to make sure that inside of our communities that resources are coming back because they're hiring from those communities. So folks just need to do the right thing, and when you don't, it's going to cost you.
Obviously, Kelly, these are allegations. They have not been proven. McDonald's, they say that they simply are incorrect. But what we're seeing now where African Americans are far more focused on going public, filing these kind of lawsuits than in the past. This reckoning that we are in, that we've been in really since the murder of George Floyd, is really a driving force in a lot of these things we're seeing.
But not only that, this has been a huge issue in not only the fast food industry, but in a lot of companies that do these franchising things, and that they should have known. Like in the lawsuit, they say that constructive knowledge should have been implied, that they should have known about the conditions of the buildings before they were sold. They should have known about the areas that these buildings were in, such that they should have been either fixed or at a lower price for the franchisee. But it's not just constructive knowledge, it's imputed knowledge, because you have McDonald's in the industry, and as a authoritative figure in the industry, they should know these things. But one of the main points of contention that I have, or a point of concern, is the fact that this is in a federal court, and Trump just packed the entire court system, federally anyway, with conservative judges. So this is why this election, not trying to get off topic, but it all ties in together. The fact that this election is incredibly important because Trump already packed these judges. The tenure for a judge on the federal bench is life or retirement. So whoever is going to be presiding over this case, provided that they are a Trump supporter, we don't know how this is going to play out in the franchisees' favor, even though they are clearly in the right by way of these allegations.
Mellet.
And this is something that we've talked about on your show, and not just in dealing with, as you noted, operators. As someone, many of us grew up in communities where the McDonald's franchises, it was a big thing to know the owners of these franchises that were in our neighborhood. I know in my own neighborhood growing up, I think probably almost all of the operators were Black. So that was something that was significant in the community, and it was really good, actually interesting listening to the gentleman when he was talking about how it is really, and I think you may have said that, about how the Black community itself, we are the ones over the years who have been also responsible for the success that McDonald's have had as just a company. So it's good to actually see, not just in this instance, but other instances where Black people are obviously asking for equity and they're not waiting for permission to do so. So I applaud the effort. We'll see what comes out of it. I disagree with Kelly. I don't think that having a conservative versus a liberal on the court is a determinant of the outcome of the lawsuit at all. I think that for the most part, they will go by whatever the law says. And I don't think that politics in this particular instance will play into it at all.
All right, folks.
You're saying that McDonald's itself is not political. This entire thing is political.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I was responding to your suggestion that somehow that conservative judges will not rule in the operators' favor.
I'm cautiously optimistic that these conservative judges will actually go by the law, but if they're appointed by Trump, they are by way, implied a Trump supporter. So you should be cautious about how they're going to rule, because conservative judges line up conservatively like liberal judges line up liberally. I'm not saying that they can't do their job. What I'm saying is we need to keep our eyes wide open when it comes to this case.
All right,
but
folks.
I just don't think it's a right or a left issue.
Back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment. As our community comes together to support the fight against racial injustice, I want to take a second to talk about one thing we can do to ensure our voices are heard. Not tomorrow, but now. Have your voices heard in terms of what kind of future we want by taking the 2020 census today at 2020census.gov? Now, folks, let me help you out. The census is a count of everyone living in the country. It happens once every 10 years. It is mandated by the U.S. Constitution. The thing that's important is that the census informs funding, billions of dollars, how they are spent in our communities every single year. I grew up in Clinton Park in Houston, Texas, and we wanted new parks and roads and a senior citizen center. Well, the census helps inform all of that and where funding goes. It also determines how many seats your state will get in the U.S. House of Representatives. Young black men and young children of color are historically undercounted, which means a potential loss of funding for services that helps our community. Folks, we have the power to change that. We have the power to help determine where hundreds of billions in federal funding go each year for the next 10 years. Funding that can impact our community, our neighborhoods, and our families and friends. Folks, responses are 100% confidential and can't be shared with your landlord, law enforcement, or any government agency. So please, take the 2020 census today. Shape your future. Start at 2020census.gov.